Hi there.
Hi Richard, how are you?
Good morning, I'm fine. You'll just have to excuse me a moment, Jamie, because I'm just I'm not in the bathroom. I'm just making myself a cup of coffee.
Oh,
That's a relief, isn't it?
phew, that is an enormous relief, which is actually, funnily enough, what I thought you were going through anyway. Right, look, Richard.
Yes.
I've got a very important date with a very important lady.
Right.
So we don't really have any time for pre-roll bants today.
Oh no.
So shall we just get on with Pod 18?
Well, we might as well do it then, mightn't we?
Yeah, Pod 18, here we go.
This is Shane Rimmer, and you are listening to the Gerry Anderson podcast.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Let's get started.
Let's go.
Spectrum is green.
The Gerry Anderson Podcast with Jamie Anderson and Richard James.
It's really early and I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's all right.
Drag you out of bed for this.
But
not
I want
physically.
to. What's the? Who's the hot date? Who are you picking up?
A very special lady, quite
Yes.
mature,
Right.
lots of experience, quite a competitive kind of high performer.
Ah, you're going to see my agent.
She might be really offended now when I actually reveal. No, I'm going to see Zelda of Guk from Terrorhawks.
Are you now?
I've got to go and pick up young Zelda from Devon.
Yes.
Or is it Dorset? I never know.
Oh, well, I'll try and find out if I before you leave home.
Well, I know where I'm going on the train, so it's fine. Anyway, so Zelda and I are going to Brand Licensing Europe, which will have happened by the time this podcast is out, but she's appearing there to do some Terrorhawks promotion and insult people. So that's
great.
nice. But I'll try and get some footage of her.
Fantastic. Also, do try and get some footage of people as they see you carrying this thing around on the train back from Dorset or Devon or wherever you're going.
Well, I'm bringing her up in a coffin, so it should be fine. Nobody's going to see.
That's a bit grim, isn't it?
It's a bit weird. Anyway, look.
Yes. Anyway.
Who are you? What are we doing here?
Oh, yes. Hello. I suppose, there might be people listening, mightn't there? This is the Gerry Anderson podcast. Welcome, one and all. I'm Richard James.
And I'm Jamie Anderson.
Yes, there we are. I mean, this is Pod 18, so we've been here for weeks now. I don't know where you've been. I know some of you actually are still making their way through the whole canon of podcasts that we've produced so far. I think there was a message on Twitter recently, because we'd love to see your messages on Twitter. You can tag me, Richard N. James, or Jamie on I'm Jamie Anderson, and hashtag us Gerry Anderson Podcast. And we've got a message here from Josh Long. Now, Josh, I think, got in touch with us recently, Jamie, to say that he was going to get married on the day of our podcast. Do you remember that?
He was sharing his morning bathroom experience with us.
That's right. That's right.
A bit like you at the start of this podcast.
He said, I'm listening to another SIG Gerry Anderson podcast. It'd be amazing to hear Liz Morgan and or Denise Breyer with the range of female characters across the Gerry Anderson universe. Yeah, wouldn't it? That'd be great.
Well, I did do a little chat with Denise a while ago. She's not one for being interviewed, but I'll definitely play that out at some point. It's quite short and sweet. And I've also got some Liz Morgan we can come to in a few weeks' time.
Excellent. Now, how would we know both of those names for people who may not be familiar with them?
Well, Denise Breyer played multiple characters in the very early days of Anderson in Four Feather Falls, and then came back for Zelda in Terrorhawks, funnily enough. Liz Morgan was multiple angels in Captain Scarlet.
Oh, that would look great on a CV, wouldn't it? Multiple angels.
Multiple angels. Very important contributors to the Gerry Anderson universe.
Yeah.
Now, Richard, I've put a particular interviewee down here, but I'm now wondering whether we should have a different one, possibly. Not Denise or Liz this week.
Yeah.
But I had a nice chat with David Quantick a couple of years ago.
Yes.
Who was very good value. Shall we have David Quantick this
David
week?
Quantick, scriptwriter, stand-up comedian, I think. He does a bit of comedy as well, doesn't he?
He's a radio presenter, Emmy-winning scriptwriter.
Yes.
And general all-round nice chap. So,
David Quantick.
So this week's interviewee is David Quantick.
Well, how exciting.
Hastily decided.
Yeah, right there and then. Great. So when did you conduct this particular interview, Jamie?
In a restaurant over lunch.
In a restaurant over lunch, of course. Of course you did.
Hey, that was part of the deal. That's the only
Was it
reason
now?
DQ did it. You know,
Yeah.
he was. Yeah.
Good for you.
Anyway,
Yeah, great. Anyway, so here we are on the Gerry Anderson podcast. Now, coming up, we have all the usual newsy news. We have listeners'
thank you,
emails, and we
Richard.
have the randomizer from Chris Dale, of course, a little later on in the podcast. In the meantime, you can get in touch with us via our email, podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk. And we would also love it if you could share us and rate us and review us and subscribe on whatever platform you're listening to so you get notifications whenever a new podcast appears in the ether. That'd be
absolutely.
Yeah.
Do the usual, screenshot your player,
Oh,
share
yes.
it with your friends, and also do us a podcast selfie
Yes.
of where you're listening to the podcast within reason, obviously.
Yeah, that's right.
Nothing R-rated,
No.
please.
Now, there was also a nice story this week. I don't know if you're familiar with this, Jamie. On the BBC and lots of other news outlets covered it about the giant puppets in Liverpool.
I did see that. I thought you were going to go elsewhere, actually, but
Ah. No, this is from the BBC website. Massive crowds have bid farewell to the enormous puppets parading the streets of Liverpool. The creatures, known as the Giants, attracted hundreds of thousands of people to the city over the weekend. The event by French arts company Royal de Luxe was the third and final one in the city after visits in 2012 and 2014. Called Liverpool's Dream, the spectacle involved a giant man figure, a boy, and a dog called Zolo moving through the streets over 4 days. Liverpool City Council said early estimates showed 1.3 million people had travelled to the area to enjoy the spectacle. Many of those that the BBC spoke to said it was an emotional experience and it felt like a remarkable moment to be part of. Isn't that amazing?
gosh.
And they are huge. There's lovely footage on the BBC website, and you can probably find it on YouTube and elsewhere as well. These huge puppets that have to be sort of manipulated, manhandled by at least 6, 7, 8 people. There's the boy figure that was mentioned there. They get his legs to move. It's all roped up with pulleys and hooks and so on. And then they get the legs to lift by jumping off. It's attached to this huge truck, and people jump off the truck, swinging on these ropes. And as they move to land, of course, the leg lifts up. And then they have to run round while another person jumps off and lifts the next leg, and then the next person jumps off and lifts. It's amazing. But that last comment there about people finding it an emotional experience chimed with your article, Jamie, that you wrote a little while back about the power of puppetry.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, it is amazing how connected people are with these things.
Yes, yes.
When especially in that case, they're so disconnected from reality, and yet, and yet,
Absolutely.
So,
yeah.
brilliant.
So where did you think I was going, Jamie?
Well, something which I'm going to touch on in the news.
Ooh, news!
Is that our new title announcement?
That's
for the
right.
News?
That's the new news sting. Ooh,
Brilliant.
News.
Who needs Gordon Tracy when you've got Richard James? But just in case, let's have Gordon Tracy anyway.
I think we should.
Here he is.
Hi, Gordon Tracy speaking. It's time for the Gerry Anderson News.
Richard, it's
Yes.
your favourite bit because
It
you
is.
get to say...
Newsy news.
Yeah,
Newsy
brilliant.
news.
That's thank you.
Thanks.
Fine, good. We've already mentioned it because I'm off to see the very fine Zelda of Guk later on today.
Yes.
But last week, Zelda appeared at Brand Licensing Europe and insulted lots of people and had
Excellent.
a wonderful time at her royal visit. You can see pictures and possibly video on the Gerry Anderson website, and it was lots of fun. And I think I operated the eyes. For Zelda, and Judy Priest, puppeteer from Terrorhawks, did the rest of the operating and the voice.
Right.
So
Great.
there you go.
Wow.
It was great fun, probably.
You think?
Because we haven't done it yet. On to another bit of future news, because it's happening tomorrow. We're recording this on the 9th of October.
Yeah.
On the 10th of October, 2 models from The Investigator are going under the hammer.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
The Investigator.
The Investigator, that
Wow.
little-known pilot story, which can
Yeah.
be found on the Lost World of Gerry Anderson DVD, available from the Gerry Anderson store and in Australia, New Zealand, and the US. It's going on sale at Saunders Fine Art Auctioneers in Stansted, Mount Fitchett,
Right.
which is a brilliant name.
It's an actor's name if ever I heard one.
It's amazing.
Yes.
On the 10th of October. So by the time you hear this, they will have been sold. They're expecting to get £6,000 to £8,000 each for a car and a boat.
Nice.
I mean, they're lovely little models made by Space Models, I think.
Yeah.
Back in the day. Radio-controlled, little 50cc Honda engines in them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Lovely.
They were in a toy museum for years, but no longer. And,
Yeah. And they're working?
I don't know. There's no demo. I mean, I'm
No.
looking at a picture and the tyres are looking pretty flat on the car. So,
and, of course, from a quite a niche Gerry Anderson production, really, as well. So
really niche, but it still grabbed people. You know, I've
Yeah.
done so many interview requests for the BBC and others this week about this auction. So, still plenty of interest in a
Nice.
real kind of Gerry Anderson oddity. Which is
Yes.
great.
Yes, lovely. Speaking as a Gerry Anderson oddity yourself, of course.
Thanks,
Hey.
Richard. I mean, I could
Sorry.
say the same about you, probably.
Yeah.
Here we go. So beyond the odd stuff, here's something a bit more mainstream, but not necessarily that mainstream. The MEV, the Martian Exploration Vehicle, which featured in Thunderbirds Go and the opening story from Captain Scarlet. So one of the very few cross-series
Yes.
vehicles. We've got a lovely little model, which is now available in the Gerry Anderson store. It's been on pre-order for weeks and it's now available, but we are already down to our last 80 out of 1,000 units.
Really?
And we won't produce any more, so go and grab one if you can.
Yes. I've got one in the spare room. You can have that if you like.
You're going to be selling it on eBay, are you? Thanks, Richard.
I'll wait.
Oh, that's very kind of you. Thanks. A bit of past news now. We're all over the place time-wise,
Yes.
aren't we?
What else is
Shout
going on?
Factory, you know, they
Oh,
did
yes.
that Thunderbirds Day marathon and it all went
Yeah.
a bit wrong because
It
of
Gremlins.
geo-blocking, location, permission issues. Well, they did a rerun of it last Friday and Saturday.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, they only told me 15 minutes into the rerun having started. So we did our
Yes.
best to communicate that out to the Gerry Anderson fans. I'm really sorry if you missed
Yeah,
the second one.
I saw a few tweets about it as it started. Yeah, it's a
but
shame.
it's a shame because at the start of the thing, there were nearly 4,000 people watching on the very
Yeah.
first run, and it just sort of had a bit of a
Yeah.
fizzling out feeling, which is a real shame. So hopefully
Yeah,
there'll be
yeah.
other opportunities in the future. Thank you, Shout Factory and ITV, for doing it anyway, despite the technical hitches. And
Yes.
if you did watch it, let us know. A bit of bad news or sort of pausey news.
Yes.
Not in a cat or dog way.
No,
I mean,
no, thankfully.
in a hitting pause way. Thunderbirds Beyond the Horizon,
Oh, yeah.
the immersive theatrical experience, is delayed until 2019.
Nothing to do with you, of course. This is
No,
it.
nothing to do with me.
No.
No, Limelight and EBP put out a little bit of a statement just saying, you know, they want to make it perfect and they
Yeah.
need the extra time. So that's
Yeah.
all. That's all I know. That's all we know. But I just thought I would spread the news.
Yeah.
If you bought tickets for it, you can either, I think, hold on to them for the actual run next year, or you can get a refund from wherever you bought them from.
Yeah, great.
But that's all we know. So. Shame, but I'm sure we'll get there eventually. And it sounds, as I said before when I spoke to Richard Lewis there, it just sounds fantastic.
Nice.
Another bit of a reminder: Firestorm.
Firestorm.
Gerry Anderson's Firestorm, brand new
Yeah.
puppety thing, which we're working on bringing to you as a full series. We are premiering the mini-sode, the mini pilot, at MCM Comic Con, 27th of October, 1 p.m. Please do try and come along. I believe tickets are selling out pretty fast for the weekend. So
Of course they are.
hurry
Yeah,
up.
great.
If you get yourself a ticket for the event, and you can come in and watch the premiere for free, but seating is limited.
Yeah.
And if you can't make it to MCM Comic Con, we'll be premiering it at firestormhq.com on the 27th of October about 1:40 p.m. And if you want to keep up to date with the latest teasers, etc., Firestorm HQ on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube, SF9 Firestorm on Twitter. And for every 1,000 new likes we get on the Firestorm HQ Facebook page, we will
Yeah.
release a new video teaser.
Oh,
So something to look forward to there.
absolutely. That's great.
And in terms of news from me,
Yes, that's
all
it.
we have.
News from you. You sound like there might be news from someone else.
Well, I don't know, Richard. You're looking poised there.
No, I just another tweet here on the subject of Firestorm. Keith Gooch tweeted, "I'm sure with all these teasers, Firestorm will be extremely popular when it's released online on 27th of October 2018. Yeah, couldn't agree more, Keith. Think it will be.
We hope
I know,
so.
because I've seen it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
you've seen it and you're in it, Richard.
And I'm in it. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Carl also got in touch on Twitter and said, Pod 17 with Phil Plait was brilliantly entertaining and interesting. Such a shame the interview had to end. More Phil, please. I beseech you.
Well, consider us
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, no, well, I'd love to have Phil back on again. I think, maybe there's room for a weekly or monthly kind of Gerry Anderson science segment with Phil. If he's up for it.
Yeah.
We certainly had a lot of fun chatting Space 1999, so maybe we can go a bit beyond.
Yeah.
I'll have a chat with him.
I also
Phil,
need to...
if you're listening, then
Yes.
let us know if you're interested.
Yeah, exactly. I also need to mention Fab Live, of course, which we recorded last week, our sort of monthly Facebook live broadcast that Jamie and I do. And it was last Monday evening, I think. The latest episode went out, and Megan found it on YouTube, where Jamie's now posted it. She said she dropped in for her first Fab Live last week. Production values to rival the BBC.
I think she might be taking the mickey there, do you?
I think she might subtly be taking the mickey, yes.
Naughty.
But you can find all our Fab Lives and podcasts, indeed, on the Gerry Anderson website, of course, gerryanderson.co.uk. And as I said, Jamie also uploads them to YouTube as and when they come out. So you can find us everywhere.
Everywhere.
Yeah, everywhere, exactly. Yeah.
Richard, we've got a few emails in the
Great.
post bag.
Oh, yes.
Should we go to viewer
Well, rather than
Should we go to listener emails?
You go to listener. Yeah, it's not viewers.
Not viewer.
I know, we've got to get this right.
Because you were
But rather
talking
than
about Fab Live.
What about a post draw? Rather than a post bag.
Is that where you've stuffed the emails this week?
Yeah, let me just
All
see
right,
if I can... Do you want one first?
Well, yeah, if I could have one, but you can get it and pass it to me.
Okay, I'll pass it to you. There you go.
Yeah, got it.
Got it?
There it is. Just
Excellent.
unfolding it.
Just
Don't know why you had to fold it up.
Well, sorry, I'm neat.
Here we go. Right. Richard, you've picked a really good one. This is from your friend Anthony from Down Under.
Now, I remember Anthony, yes, of course.
Yes. Well,
He doesn't remember me,
says,
does he?
Well, he does this time.
Yeah.
He says, hi, Richard and Jamie.
That's nice. Good start.
I think I called Richard Stewart in a previous podcast
You
as I
think?
mentally associated him as a brilliant actor in the caliber of James Stewart, as Richard's surname is James. Though you probably won't buy that. And it was just a gaffe.
Yeah, keep digging, Anthony. Keep digging.
That was a really nice try, though.
Yeah.
Anyway, I wish to alert listeners to the free episode download of Andy's Android, narrated by Richard on his website, along with other goodies, which I discovered this week and found it a great and fun listen.
Yes.
Now,
Yes.
Richard,
That's nice.
what
Andy's
website
Android?
is that? How do you
Well, that's
find that?
richardjamesonline.com, of course.
Right, excellent. I don't think we've plugged that website before, you know.
Well, no, because there's nothing of interest there, really, apart
Except from
a free
Andy's
episode
Android.
download of Andy's Android.
What is Andy's Android?
It's an audio book for children. So I wrote it. It's many years ago. I wrote it and recorded it and just put it on my website. And you can listen to a free episode, and you can download all 4 episodes quite cheaply, either as an MP3 or a CD. I think.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Anthony. That's very
Head
nice.
over and do it, folks.
Yeah, nice.
Anthony continues. I was wondering if you chaps could provide your opinion of the last Supermarination series, Secret Service, and its use of cryptic Unwinese language. The Gerry verse, or is it Anderson verse, is voluminous and is a gift that keeps on giving and is constantly surprising.
So it
Cheers
is.
from Anthony.
Nice.
Well, Richard, are you a big fan of Secret Service?
Now, I've never, and I do mean to sit down and watch the Secret Service. Of course, I know, I know of it, and I've seen clips and so on. I know the basic premise, and I know all about Stanley Unwin, who famously also did some of his Unwinese on a Small Faces album called Ogden's Nut Gone Flake. That's where I principally know him from. But yes, I know.
That was a Fab or Fib.
It was,
on Fab
indeed.
Live 5, I think.
God, you're good. Yeah, you're right. But it's certainly one I mean to sit down and watch, because I know it's a little odd, isn't it?
It's extremely quirky.
Yes.
The Unwinese, I mean, it's quite a fun little idea. It smacks of sort of Pertweean Doctor Who, actually, although made before John Pertwee started his reign and Doctor Who. So, yeah, it's quite fun, you know, the idea of someone being able to talk their way out of situations by talking gobbledygook, but it sort of belongs in the world of comedy, I think.
Yes.
And it doesn't quite work in a series which is otherwise relatively straight-laced, despite its bizarre concepts.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And
bit
an
of
odd mix
oddity.
of live action and puppetry, is that right?
It's a bit, I mean, it's an odd mix of everything, isn't it?
Yeah, okay, yeah.
I mean, sorely lacking in the kind of sci-fi explosives department, although there are the odd explosion in
Yeah.
the Secret Service. But one which was perhaps doomed to fail. Anyway, there you go. Thank you, Anthony. Richard, do you want to grab something out of the e-post
I'm
drawer?
actually going to get something from the rather from the letter drawer or the letter bag, from the letter grill.
Right.
There we go. Ah, yes. I can see this one. This is from Terry S. It says, "Hello, gentlemen. Greetings from me, Terry, here in California. Yes, I do indeed remember watching Supercar when it first aired here in the States. That opening sequence, shot for shot, remains just letter perfect. Once seen and heard, it never truly goes away. Back in the early 60s, it was so different from anything else on television, and for all that the world has changed, it still is. And the first British TV show I ever saw. It's amusing to hear some of my fellow Andersonian viewers and listeners of your broadcasts say that they believed Thunderbirds had been an American TV programme. Yeah, still watching and listening and enjoying after all these years. With best always to you both, Terry S."
Thanks, Terry.
Yeah, really nice.
That's awesome. Yeah, but again, it's a lovely spread of listeners we've got here, Richard.
Yeah.
International.
Yeah.
People who watched Supercar the very first
time it
out
aired
in the US,
That's
which
right.
is awesome. And then we've got others who saw Thunderbirds for the first time in the 90s or even the 2000s.
That's right.
So,
now, did this all sort of happen concurrently? So when Supercar aired here, was it just a matter of a short period of time before it aired in the States, or was it much later?
I certainly think it was less than a year.
Right.
Yeah, as far as I know. And
Great.
that Supercar was then the thing that kicked off the whole licensing empire for Century 21.
Yeah.
Because I think the broadcasters in the US bought Supercar and then they started doing merchandise, which they weren't allowed to do.
Yeah.
And so Keith Shackleton, who was one of Dad's business partners and advisors, flew out and did a sort of contra deal where they then took back various sort of US 60s merchandising rights.
Yeah.
And that then sparked the whole world of Century 21.
I see.
In terms of all the merch and the toys and the comics, and just brilliant. So
how interesting. Yeah.
there you go.
Great.
So thanks, Terry. Fantastic. Shall I do one more, just a quickie?
Yeah. Okay then.
So this actually wasn't sent into the podcast, but I thought it was sufficiently interesting that I would bring it here.
Yeah. Nice.
Shall I? I'll just get it out of my e-folder.
Okay. Yeah. Is that the best you could do?
I haven't got enough hands.
How many do you need?
Well, more than two for doing what I'm trying to do. Anyway, look, here we go. This is from Sarah. Sarah says, "Hi!
Hi, Sarah.
In celebration of Thunderbirds Day, I thought I would send you this letter. I'm an avionics student at Southern Alberta Institute of Technology, SAIT, in Canada. And in class, we were discussing canard aircrafts.
Oh, yeah.
Brackets.
The ducks, yeah.
Not the ducks.
Oh,
I knew you'd say that. Thanks, Richard. If you don't know, canards are a type of aircraft where the smaller wings, usually located at the back of an airplane, are in the front. I've recently learned that this is actually a more aerodynamic and more efficient design. It made me think back to the Fireflash episode, and after Googling, I found out that the Fireflash is in fact a canard.
Aha.
I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing this correctly, whether we should say canard, or canard, or whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, let's say canard.
Yeah.
So Sarah sent us a little sketch comparing, with the wings, the little wings on the back, or the sort of tail part versus the front, comparing it to the Fireflash. She said, "I applaud the research team on researching aircraft and making an aircraft that would work and was ahead of its time."
Yeah.
Or in Fireflash's case, future technology. I showed my instructor, and he remembers the show from back when he was a child and is also very impressed that a show would put so much dedication into researching an episode. Thank you for your time, dedication, and effort. Well, I mean, it shouldn't thank us directly, Sarah. I'm sure she was thanking the wider teams, but that's what happens when you get people who genuinely love flight and aircraft and technology and science involved in the film industry and being able to be involved with science fiction. They
designing stuff.
Yeah, which could actually work. I mean, there's arguments to be had over Thunderbird 2 and whether it can actually fly and all that, but yes, it's got a lifting body, so it would be fine. Maybe. Probably not. Anyway, I love that. So thank you very much, Sarah.
Lovely, Sarah.
And fantastic that a 1965 series is becoming part of discussion in a modern avionics class at a university in Canada. Isn't that brilliant?
That's amazing, isn't it? That's great.
So yes, thank you, Sarah, and thank you to your instructor. Do say hello from us.
Yeah, do.
And if you find any more Anderson craft that are technically correct, aerodynamically superior, and would have flown, then let us know.
Yeah, unlike Lieutenant Brogan's flying VW Beetle.
Oh.
Which I'm sure would never have got off the ground.
I'm not a fan of that design either, I'm afraid. Sorry, Space Precinct fans. Anyway, look, that is the end of the viewer emails this week.
Listener emails, of course.
Oh, no, I said
You've
it again.
You've done it again, haven't you?
Oh, well, let's just leave it in.
Yeah.
It's the end of the listener emails
You left
this
mine
week.
in last time, so why not?
That's true, yeah. We're both idiots, Richard. That's the problem. So anyway, look, if you've got a question you'd like answered, an observation or anything else, then email us, podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk. We would love to read it out, and we'll try not to lose your email in the e-grill, e-post folder,
e-toaster,
or e-drawer, or e-toaster. Yeah, that'd be terrible.
That's only because I happen to be sitting in the kitchen this week, that's all.
I wonder what that was all about, Richard. Now I know. Anyway.
Yes, and also, of course, you can get in touch with us on Twitter. I must remind you, of course, to rate, review, and share whatever platform you're listening to us on, and do subscribe to make sure you hear every single pod. But also, you can get in touch with us on Twitter. You can hashtag us Gerry Anderson Podcast. Post a screenshot of the whichever platform you're listening to us on, and also Jamie's asking for you to post a selfie of wherever you are listening to the podcast.
Yes,
and pop that on Twitter. Mark Simpson Wedge, who we know well, tweeted us: the Gerry Anderson Podcast mentioned MI High last time, which we did. He said, Joe 90's way better because Joe gets to carry a gun, he travels around the world, and the show is taken seriously. All MI High does is take the mickey out of James Bond. Wow. I mean, I really only flagged up MI High because I was in it, Mark.
That's MI High told, and Richard.
Well, quite right too. I feel
regret that.
Yes, suitably chastened. But thanks for getting in touch, Mark. Yeah, as ever, you can drop us a line, podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk. Get in touch with us on Twitter. Richard M. James, I'm Jamie Anderson. Hashtag us, take pictures, post them everywhere. You know the deal.
Oh, sorry, you
much
finished.
To remember.
Yes, there is so much. I'd slightly sort of
zoned out
there for a moment. Yeah. Anyway, hopefully listeners
Everyone's
haven't.
a critic.
Maybe hearing from a different voice would help them stay awake, Richard. So on that note, shall we move to our interview for this week?
Yeah, let's hear it. This will be interesting.
Well, it's the rather marvellous David Quantick, a writer and radio presenter and talking head and novelist and generally nice human being. Yeah. We had a nice chat at a restaurant. Sorry about the background noise as usual. I think we managed to finish the interview before our burger arrived. Actually, I had a burger. I think he had a steak.
Right, did he now?
Yeah, and we just received some good news about something which I can't talk about, so there may also be the odd clink of glass. So,
right, excellent.
Here is our interview with David Quantick.
My name is David Quantick. I am a comedy writer, music journalist, and radio broadcaster.
That's a lovely summary. It sounds like you've said that 1,000 times before.
Literally 1,000 times before. It's my anniversary of saying it.
Happy anniversary.
Thank you very much.
I look forward to raising a glass shortly. I can't quite remember how we got in touch first. Do you have any recollection of that, or is it so mundane that it's not worth
It
mentioning?
might have been on Twitter.
Is it because you tweeted something about something Anderson-y, or...
Yeah, I know after I met you I tweeted some pictures of bins, green bins with twos on them.
Yes.
It said Thunderbird 2's let itself go. Yeah, I know we met in here to have a conversation and then I did some writing, but yeah, the exact...
Twitter,
yeah.
Twitter's an amazing thing, connecting people up, yeah.
It is. I do a lot of work on Twitter. It's quite bizarre. I just got to reply something to my wife. If that's all right,
Text the wife, it's very important. Great, thank you very much. Thanks. So while David's saying that, I'll say that some Prosecco has just arrived because we're going to toast some good news which I can't currently share.
It's all good. I'm just struggling with predictive text, which is literally the opposite. It's kind of, you know, you've got someone who always gets things wrong. They say, yeah, I went out last night and I had a pizza. You're like, no, burger. And then I came home on the bus, train. It was exactly what my phone is like.
Well, except it would say bizarre and cup rather than pizza and bus, probably.
That's very good. Okay, where were we?
Right at the very start.
Right at the very start.
Nothing of any consequence has happened at all.
Twitter is a good place. It's really weird. You send talk to people, and also it's really good if you want to work with famous people,
Yeah.
because you can talk to them and you can send them ideas, and they don't have to tell you anything about themselves.
Yes.
Cheers. Congratulations.
Cheers,
This
thank
is really
you.
unique.
Well, likewise, we'll do that to the book as well,
you.
shall we?
That's nice Prosecco.
That's the way to do it, isn't it? The listeners to this podcast already think I'm an old lush going
Right.
places and drinking and
If
eating.
you're listening at home, this is 9 o'clock in the morning at an airport. It's about airport drinking. Airport drinking is like, because you can drink at any time.
Yeah.
Airports are constantly full of really drunk people who are about to get on a plane, and it's not a good idea.
It's a sort of non-time zone, so you
it
feel like
is.
you
It's
can do
time. It's
whatever.
like casinos. They have no windows or clocks.
So you can drink 24 hours if you wish.
Yeah, they should put casinos in airports more.
Well, as it's 9 o'clock, cheers to our third Prosecco at 9
Cheers.
o'clock. Right, so David,
Yes.
let's hop in a TARDIS, going off-brand, and wind our way back to your childhood. I'm assuming that's when you first saw Anderson stuff. You don't strike me as a kind of came to it in the 90s person.
No, I've got very embedded. It's really weird because completely randomly, one of my earliest memories is standing outside someone's house in Plimpton where I grew up, and I think they're watching Fireball XL5, and I think someone's actually got a toy, which now would be in a Swiss vault, but there must be like 9 Fireball XL5 toys. I don't know if there ever were. But yeah, because the Anderson world, of course, predates, I'm telling you things you know, but predates Thunderbirds. And for people like me in their late 50s, I had a plastic Stingray bath toy. And it's interesting, I'm talking in terms of toys, because the whole franchise was one of the earliest toy franchises.
It really was.
Toys, board games, dolls, action figures. I can remember once having an argument with someone in my street, and by someone I mean another child, and I thought they were being nosy, so I went home, got my cardboard cutout Parker figure from a packet of cornflakes that I'd cut out, and went down to show it to him because he was a nosy Parker. I was 28. But yeah, you would get the cutout Thunderbirds figures from Kellogg's. So yeah, I suppose the short answer is yes, I grew up with Thunderbirds and Gerry Anderson and Captain Scarlet and Joe 90. Joe 90 was my teenage nickname.
Really?
Yeah.
You're one of those. I was writing about that this morning for the Radio
Really?
Times. Yeah, saying lots of people got named that, and normally it had a negative connotation. It was a sort of bully's name for geeks in the playground.
I was a four-eyed git who could read. Two things I got was you swallowed a dictionary.
Right.
Actually, it's a fist that you have down my throat, not a dictionary. And, oh, look at you, Joe 90.
Wow.
Which, being stupid, I took as a compliment, because Joe 90 was clearly really cool.
You thought he was cool?
Well, now I don't. I thought he was an idiot. But yeah. But yeah, he was really cool. He was basically an unhappy boy whose dad was a weird professor who'd been railroaded for some reason into being a spy and going out on missions where presumably he had to kill people. And
All the
they had to brainwash him to delete the trauma.
Well, did they delete the trauma? I think they just kept they deleted the brain pattern that he'd been given, but
Did the memories remain?
I've got this idea that he gradually built up all these terrible memories of these atrocities that he'd been behind.
You see, if you were doing a Watchmen-style comic, Joe 90 now in his late 50s, having to deal with all these... Because loads of people would want to kill him, loads of families ruined, and he can remember everything, but the twist would be he can't defend himself.
He's got none of the skills.
No, because,
they were
what was it
temporary.
called? Wasp or Rat's Nest?
Big Rat.
Big Rat.
Rat's Nest.
Terrible name, Big Rat.
You can't remember what it stood for?
Brain in gun. No, I can't.
Brain, impulse, galvanoscope, record and transfer. I
Well
think.
done. See, to me that says something about whoever came up with that, what they really thought. Because it's not a good name. If somebody said we're going to put you in Big Rat.
No, true. It's not a sexy tech name, is it?
It's a horrible, and it really indicates. Because let's just ramble. The world of Joe 90 I really like. I love Bereznik. That was a great idea to just go for it and say they're the Russians.
Yep.
And they all look like Brezhnev. So obviously the name was from that. So I love the fact it was a concrete enemy and there was a kind of CIA thing.
Yep.
The puppets, of course, at this point were really good, in the late 60s. So Joe's dad looked quite human, and Joe did as well. I mean,
Yeah.
I'd say Joe 90 is probably one of the least attractive puppets.
I would say, I mean, it's difficult to phrase this right, but there are a lot of other child puppet characters throughout the Anderson canon that
Yeah.
are really ugly, frightening. I mean, Jimmy Gibson in Supercar,
Yeah,
horrible
macrocephalic
little-
freak.
exactly, horrible face. Those kids in Thunderbirds and Give or Take a Million, where they visit the island for Christmas,
Ugh.
they are little monsters. So actually, Joe was quite a
No, I think-
good-looking child puppet.
But he
What's
is
the phrase?
he is a geek.
Oh, I think he was a precocious little git, actually.
Yeah, but he's coming up. I think that's why I identified with him. He really is.
Kindred spirits.
If there were any other kids in Joe 90, you know, they're looking around the room and they're going, okay, who's the most expendable? It's Four Eyes in the corner, you know. He probably is a bit old. Well, yeah, I mean, Joe 90, apart from the kid thing, I love the fact that, you know, the more sophisticated the stuff gets, the slightly odder it gets, and obviously the move away from animation. I like the ones, it's like when black and white films got really nice cinematography after they'd invented colour and no one cared. Just as the puppets got brilliant, you know, the puppets became less of the focus.
Well, did you ever see The Secret Service?
I've seen clips, yeah, it's amazing.
It's amazingly weird.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm very fond of it, so I'm not slagging it off. But
No, no.
I can always remember there's a scene where a female puppet character in a red coat runs towards a motorcycle to get away, to effect a getaway, and then it cuts to a live-action man in a red coat with a
yeah.
headscarf on, sort of really striding around, wide-legged, splay-legged. It was just a bizarre choice, but I guess a part of Dad's desire to go to live action.
It's interesting because I'm not saying it's an Achilles heel, but it's when you've invented this perfect world, and everybody's going to want to move on. What's the time frame between UFO and the first? Was it Four Feather Falls? Is that?
Well, it's 10
first
years, 59 to 69.
right?
So it's not that long, actually.
It's a long time to be doing it though, to be going in every day and fiddling
Yeah.
with string.
And to create so many, because in that time period you got Four for the Fools, Supercar, Fireball XL5, stick in that horrible live action movie Crossroads to Crime, actually, which you probably won't have seen, I don't know, I was
No.
watching it. Stingray Thunderbirds, Thunderbirds Are Go the movie, Scarlet, Thunderbirds 6 Doppelganger the movie, and Joe 90 The Secret Service, and then UFO. You wouldn't happen now to do that many series in 10 years.
I always over compare things to rock music, but it's like the Beatles doing 2 albums a year.
Yeah,
And this is a very successful show. It's not like, oh, I'm desperate.
yeah.
And no, I mean, there's so much I'd like to know about it, because every time I watch them, when you're a kid, you just watch it.
Yeah.
But when you're older, you realise that all these things are deliberate, that the designs are deliberate, the way things are aged are deliberate. That I think when I interviewed your dad, I think he may have said it then, that the thing he really hated was water. Couldn't get water right.
Doesn't scale.
No.
A
it's
droplet
just-
is,
You put something in water, it looks like a model instantly.
well, unless you make it absolutely enormous, and then you've got a whole host of other problems.
And then you might as well just buy a spaceship.
Yes. Actually build full-size Stingray.
But what I love is it becomes a perfect world, and it starts off grotesque with Four Feather Falls and early Fireball and things like that.
Yeah.
And then it gets more and more Captain Scarlet is beautiful. I would say, and I was probably about 9 when that came out.
Oh, good age for it.
Yeah, perfect. And I had, for some reason I had an Airfix interceptor from the jumble sale, pre-made.
Right.
I don't know why, because I just got one for my birthday, but yeah, it's the best series of models, best characters. Just absolutely beautiful looking show. Really good plot, probably the scariest before UFO, because they get dark as well.
Oh, really? I mean, there's so much murder in Captain Scarlet. Well, it's the centerpiece of the Mistron activity, isn't it? Everything has to be destroyed before it can be rebuilt. So you get dead puppets face down in streams after they've drowned, and bloodied corpses. It was, it's sort of, it's almost now something that will make you think of Team America. the treatment of the puppets like that, making them so serious.
Is it
so
symbolic?
grim.
Is it he just wants to kill the puppets? He wants to get out.
Oh, maybe, yeah.
Well, then you get, I mean, is it the increasing darkness? Because UFO used to scare the crap out of me. There's constantly aliens drowning in their helmets. I seem to
So
remember
you would have
that.
been, what, 12?
12, yeah, so...
UFO. So yeah, I mean, UFO is much more adult, really. It
Well,
wasn't-
you watched it because I was a bit older and it was Gerry Anderson.
yeah.
And
And were your folks okay with you watching UFO, or did you have to sneak in to watch it?
I don't think my parents quite got it.
Right.
You know, I don't think they really watched it with me, and yeah, I think I watched pretty much all of it, and I expressed my fear. Maybe my parents didn't care.
You wet yourself, but they weren't
Pretty
bothered.
much. But I mean, also, of course, it's the early 70s. It's the same time I'd be watching, say, The Owl Service, famously the most terrifying supernatural show, and Doctor Who.
Yeah.
You know, Doctor Who, which was regularly rightly complained about.
Mary
This is-
Whitehouse and all that. Yeah.
There's a bigger picture here, you know, there's children's comics, famously in the 70s, children's comics turned into these horrible orgies of death and murder. Pretty much, you know, Bunty is stabbing people on buses. I exaggerate, but yeah.
Was it? What do you think that's affected today's 50 and 60-year-olds?
No, not at all. I really don't. I think that everything is reflections of the era.
Yeah.
You know, I think if you know you'd had classic Gerry Anderson going on all the way through the 70s without that hiatus, there would have been punk era stuff. There would have been there's a missing dystopian series
Yeah.
because all the great Anderson stuff it's actually utopias. You know,
Oh,
Thunderbirds.
yeah.
They live in a perfect world. There's a world. Any show that's got a world government
Yes.
that's kind of sunny.
Which is almost all of them, isn't it?
Yeah. And there's the threats, you know, I mean, the other thing about Thunderbirds is the threat is not evil. Well, there is the Hood to spice it up,
Yeah.
but he's kind of a clown.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
Fu Manchu.
He is the court jester, sort of. But
Yeah.
everything else is human error,
Yeah.
natural disaster.
It's not things that scare children. Children aren't scared of earthquakes.
No.
But they are scared of the thing under the bed, you know.
Yeah. They are scared of the Mysterons.
They're scared of the Mysterons. Yeah, so there's alien influences.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would love to have been the mid-70s Big Brother-esque dystopian thing with, you know, vandalism in the streets and society collapsing.
Yeah. Well, that would probably not have been Dad's style. I've got a treatment that he wrote, actually, a political thriller, terrorist political thriller,
Oh wow,
called Operation Shockwave.
that's a great name.
Quite fun, which they almost made actually in Israel, but then the project's financier dropped out at the last minute, and Mum and Dad were held by the police
Oh my
because
God.
they were there without funding, without backing,
In
without
Israel?
reason. Yeah.
Wow, that's a place where you really don't want to get held by the police.
No, exactly. Anyway, they made it back and it was fine, but that's probably the darkest thing of his that I've ever seen.
Really, I mean,
It was
terrorism.
grim.
There's not much fun in terrorism, apart from Team America.
Apart from Team America, yeah. What did you think of Team America?
I love Team America. It was, first you're watching it and you think, come on, you can't, because there's nothing in the publicity about this is a massive rip-off of Gerry Anderson. No. There's not mentioned, but you're like, hang on, it is, it really is,
Yeah.
it totally is. They've just sat down and watched hours of Thunderbirds. And
Yeah.
probably just Thunderbirds as well, I don't know.
Oh, yeah, no, it was just Thunderbirds that was the way they decided to do it. It wasn't out of respect or love for the original. It was, we need to find a weird way of doing this.
Right.
Have you guys seen Thunderbirds? Oh my God, why would anybody make a show like this? Was what
Oh, really?
Matt and Trey said. Yeah.
So it's not, it's interesting because most pastiches are affectionate.
Well, I think a lot of the people who worked on it did so with affection. A lot of the people
Right.
they got to build the puppets and the props and that side of stuff, they knew the originals, and so
Because it's not mocking the form.
well. Matt and Trey's vision was to mock the form, wasn't it? Like the way the puppets moved and the issues with them being strung and that sort of thing, and the puppet sex scene, which
Oh yeah. it's
I
one of
think
the-
is where Dad turned off when he did watch it.
Yeah, I remember reading an interview with the guy who created said he created Batman, and he was reading one of the Frank Miller ones, and he said, "I don't nipples. What's going on?" And there's like nasty bag ladies.
Yeah.
But I can understand it might be a bridge too far, but it's a funny film. It works. It's very strange. Someone should have handed some money over to somebody, is all I'm saying. It's clearly...
Yes.
Yeah, there's pastiche and there's theft.
No, I agree. It's interesting because, as you know, we're doing a new puppet show at Firestorm.
It's very exciting. I've seen it, readers, listeners, whoever you are, it's great.
There's your 50 quid, David, thanks very much.
It's 9 o'clock, I've been drinking heavily for hours now.
since before 9 o'clock. And when we're going around talking about Firestorm, showing the material, I would say about less than 5%, but still a number worth mentioning. About 5% of people will go, "Oh yeah, it's like Team America." So it's really invaded, it's pervaded consciousness, and a lot of people's only reference for puppets on screen is Team America.
How interesting.
I just wonder whether you think something like Team America negatively affects the opportunity for puppets to be taken seriously.
Because I think because Team America is such a good film, and because to those people it's unique. You know, I've spent years going, Team America, hell yeah, at random and seeing. It's an impressive technical achievement.
It is, yeah. They said they'd never do it again because it was horrible.
Yeah, it's a bugger. But I don't think that refracts negatively on something like Firestorm at all. People are like, "Oh, I get this. It's doing it seriously. Why not?" And what was always interesting about the 60s Gerry Anderson stuff was that it's a ludicrous genre to work in. You describe it, you say, okay, we've got massive set pieces, we've got beautiful spaceships, flying machines, we've got adventure plots, it's in colour, explosions, and it's marionettes. That's a bit like saying we're making a porn film, except we're going to have glove puppets.
It's going to be done with sock puppets only.
Yeah, it's War and Peace with glove puppets. But it worked. You know, the whole thing, you know, you say super marionation, people are like, yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah.
It's not a thing.
Isn't it amazing to make a thing out of what you,
Yeah.
To combine all those elements and for it to actually work and for it to be successful and for it then to go on and on.
To go on and on, and you see, you know more about this than me, but you see Japanese animations that are nothing more than, you know, CGI versions of puppet stuff.
Yep.
It's just part of the language, just the way that manga is part of the language now, and you're watching American cartoon and they've stolen from Japanese animation. So it's just part of the language, I think. And yeah, as long as the puppets don't walk like they do in Team America or have big white strings like they did in Super Thunder Sting Car.
Yes.
Which is the other great. If you presumably your listeners will know what that is.
Hopefully they will, but tell us about it.
Super Thunder Sting Car was one of those moments when you're in your 20s, because as a kid I was too young for Peter Cook and Dudley Moore, but obviously was big fans of their work later. Peter Cook and Dudley Moore, the British comedians, on their show, they did a parody of all of Gerry Anderson's stuff. And because it was the most popular show, it's like you do a parody of Doctor Who or the Beatles. And it's a very funny parody. They do it live action with lots of makeup and huge strings on their hands. And it's called I always get it wrong, Super Thunder Sting Car.
It is, yeah, that's it.
And it's just one of those things, it's a juxtaposition of two things that you love. It's like, when there's an episode of Doctor Who when they watch TV and the Beatles are in it. You're like, oh my God, the Beatles are in they're not really in it, but. So it's a great moment, and it's, to my knowledge, the only other important Thunderbirds Gerry Anderson parody or pastiche. Other people have done it.
Yeah, you're probably right, actually.
I've seen people, tie white canes to their hands, and of course there was that stage show. I'd forgotten that. I saw that.
Did you go to see it? When did you go to see it?
Towards the end of the first run, I think. It was in a big theatre.
Was it West End?
West End, yeah.
Yeah, I remember going as a kid, but I was quite young, when they had the cardboard hats
Yeah.
that came with the programme and you could fold them out and wear
I'd
them.
forgotten that. Some of it didn't work because like all mine were going, oh, what are we now? Oh, I see, just now we were this, now we're this.
Yeah.
Okay, but it was beautifully done.
Yeah.
And it was interesting because that era, the sort of mid-80s, early 80s, was the first age of Jonathan Ross style tongue-in-cheek nostalgia.
Yeah.
Which I loved, you know, at the time. I'm a bit bored with it now. It's like, is everything ironic? But then it was like, oh wow, it's done with affection and mockery, and it was nice.
There was a lot of affection. Bizarrely, two of the guys who were involved in the stage show in the second run and the third bit of voicing on the Firestorm
Oh, that's
piece.
great.
Yeah, because that was part of Dad's thing, was to keep the kind of the Anderson family together, the extended family.
That's really nice. I like the idea that two mime artists were brought in. It's quite a risk. I mean, what if they sounded terrible? Never heard them speak.
But luckily, I'd seen them in other bits and pieces. In fact, Wayne Forrester was new Captain Scarlet. He voiced in that, and Richard James was in Space Precinct. Did you see any of the later stuff? I mean, I'm talking.
Well, it depends by what you mean by later stuff.
Well, I mean post-70s, so I'm talking.
Yeah, I saw
Terrorhawks, Dick Spanner.
Saw Terrorhawk, saw Dick. Always got confused with that because of the advert. I'm like, I don't know which is what. Do they know about each other? They seem to be the same. What was the ad for?
Lieutenant.
Lieutenant, yeah, it was
Terence Pilsner.
I had mixed feelings about Terrorhawks because I was getting older. It was like I didn't watch Doctor Who then, so it's exactly the same thing.
Oh, really? You bailed on Doctor Who by 83?
I was just tired of it. I mean, my dad says I saw the first episode from my pram, so I'd been watching Doctor Who for 20 years.
Fair enough.
And I was 20, so 22. But yeah, no, I mean, I think Terrorhawks I would have loved if I'd actually been young, but at this point I was too old for it and too young for it. Jaded, but also I kind of wasn't ready for the comeback thing.
Yeah.
Now I'd probably sit down and love it.
Yeah.
I like the fact Windsor Davis was in it.
Yes.
I like the little flying cubes. I thought Zelda of Guk was a stupid name. There, I've said it.
That's well. You don't have. She didn't refer to herself as Zelda of Guk that often.
It was
Just Zelda.
Well, Zelda's fine, but now I think it was perfectly fine.
Damning with faint praise.
Well, I can't have the affection for something I did when I was 9.
No, of course. And then by the time you get to 1994 with Space Precinct, probably barely watched it.
I don't think I know it.
David, live action, animatronic heads.
Oh God.
Cops in space.
Okay. I might go on YouTube and watch it.
There is a DVD out in November. I'll make sure you get a copy.
Thank you very much.
You can enjoy that.
1994, my life was very different. I was probably waiting for Oasis to happen. And yeah, mine was quite 60s retro, isn't it? But Oasis famously looked like Thunderbirds puppets.
Yeah, it's the eyebrows, really, wasn't it?
It's the eyebrows, yeah, and the slightly too big head.
I didn't say that, you did. I think, well, I want to get your point of view on nostalgia, especially again in connection. I'm playing devil's advocate with Firestorm a little bit here. You said nostalgia, that sort of nostalgic reminiscing in entertainment began in the 80s, really, with Jonathan Ross and stuff. Do you think we're putting Gerry Anderson shows on a pedestal because they are of the past, things of our childhood that were important to us, and our view is clouded by nostalgia, and really kids don't want to see these idiot puppets?
No, I don't, because I have 2 very small children, and they can tell the difference between, say, the recent Thunderbirds, whatever it's called, and the 60s Thunderbirds, and they watch them, and you know, they have different opinions about each one. They can tell the difference, and if it's good, I think, you know, there's such a thing as the market, and I think the market decides, and I think the market will decide in favour. You know, people sit down, when they sit in front of the TV, they don't think about considerations of nostalgia and irony and postmodernism. They're like, can I watch this? Do I want my kids to watch it? Will everyone enjoy it? And if it, you know, it's like, say, the BBC recently remade The Clangers, and it was a lovely moment. But I put it on with the boys, and they're like, oh, this is boring, and it's because I think it's aimed too much at adults. It's like, you know, when it's a difference between, right, When you're a kid, you buy a toy car. Let's say it's a Jaguar. And when you're 30 and you can't afford a Jaguar, somebody for your birthday gives you a little beautiful Jaguar in a box. And it's the same size, and one's really well made, and one's going to get beaten up, but one's crap, and that's the one in the box. It costs 15 quid, and it's got an embossed base.
Right.
The one that your kids pull the tyres off, that cost £1.99 from the car boot, is the good one. And I think Firestorm will be that. Firestorm will be the one from the car boot with all the tyres pulled off that people play with.
Interesting. Okay.
Hopefully you think something like that, otherwise you shouldn't be making it.
No, we love it. Everybody's working on it loves it.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Tim. Fantastic, thank you.
That looks lovely.
Whoa. Well, lucky for you, we're pretty much done, but while you're stuffing your face with the tiniest skinny fries I've ever seen.
Little maggots of chips.
They look lovely. What is it about Gerry Anderson shows across all of them that gives them their Andersonness, their Anderson quality?
It is the thing of having a standalone universe and not caring. There's not a lot of humour in the world. There's a little bit, but because it's taking it at face value and saying, so what if they're puppets? These are actually cool characters. It's the way that it fed in. I was fascinated when I discovered it was part of the Lou Grade world, because it fits in weirdly with things like the Persuaders and the Saint, that it's not camp, though those are a bit camp. It creates a world and invites you in to join that world, which is full of adventure and excitement, imagination, and yeah, I mean, you come back to the models, not so much the puppets.
Yeah.
Thunderbird 2, that's my definition of why Gerry Anderson's great. Thunderbird 2,
Yep.
What the is it? Sorry, I'll say that again in case you don't do swear.
I can beep it out.
Right. What is it? It looks like a Volkswagen that's been in, it's like a frog that's been in an accident. It's mad. Aerodynamically it's probably rubbish, but it's amazing. Do you know what? Do you know how you can tell? If you ever had to do a thing where you had to tell someone's gender, do you know how you do it?
Go on.
You say to them, what do you think of Thunderbird 2? And I know this sounds incredibly sexist, but a woman would always say the wings are on the wrong way around. Every woman I've ever met has looked at Thunderbird 2 and says, why are the wings on the wrong way around? Every man just goes, look at those wings, they're so cool.
That's an interesting analysis. I'm going to put it to the test.
I think you should. But Thunderbird 2 is the exact epitome. It looks a bit odd, but it doesn't care. It looks beautiful to me. It's not a sexy Star Trek vehicle. It's not a Doctor Who robot. It's not Star Wars. That's another thing you say about Gerry Anderson. It's not Star Wars. These are beautiful, ugly things. It's kind of British, even though it's dressed as American. It's, it's from the 60s, but it doesn't. And you could probably say it does look like something from the 60s, but.
Well, every generation of kids thinks it was made for them, so.
Yeah, and it was in a way. It looks like nothing on Earth.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there we go.
Amazing. Looks like nothing on Earth.
Looks like nothing on Earth.
Brilliant.
The end.
Amazing, thank you, David. And if people want to find you online, I don't mean your home address, if people want to find you online, where can they find you?
17 Railway Terrace. I'm on Twitter at Quantick, and I'm on Facebook. And yeah, you were going to plug my book.
Yeah, and well, I've backed your book on Unbound. Is backed, is that the right term?
Was it what?
Backed,
yes, you gave me some money. We gave the publisher some money.
I gave the publisher some money.
Which they kept.
So what, your book's called?
It's called Go West.
And what is it?
It's a comedy thriller road movie novel about fakes and John Peel and music and the Pet Shop Boys and murder and Gus Honeyman. There's one for 60s fans.
Amazing. And where can people get it?
You can get it in shops or from Unbound, the publishers. Not quite yet, but soon.
Okay, there you go. Not quite yet, but soon. Go West, Unbound.
Thank you very much,
David
Jamie.
Quantick. Cheers.
Thank you. That was lots of fun.
Very nice.
I wish we'd had longer, Richard.
What, for lunch?
No, for the chat.
Oh, I see.
There was so much more we could have covered. So there you go. David is another guest who I'd love to have back.
Yes.
He was great fun. And of course, do go and find him on Twitter at Quantick. And do go and order his new book/books.
Yeah, he's done all sorts of stuff. He's an Emmy-Award-winning journalist. He's written with people like Chris Morris, Armando, Iannucci on the Hour and Blue Jam and Veep and so on. And also one of my favourite programmes, TV Burp with Harry Hill.
Yes, yeah.
So yet again, we're finding people in all sort of walks of life in the entertainment industry who are big Gerry Anderson fans, which is amazing. They are out there, aren't they? They really are out there.
They're everywhere, and David's a very clever chap, and I rather enjoyed his analysis of various Anderson shows,
Yes.
which he didn't enjoy.
Yes.
So there we go. Look, next week, I think we've got Andrew James Spooner, who is a puppeteer.
Yes, he is.
Who has worked on Firestorm and many other things.
Great.
So we're going from, fans in the wider world who've won awards for various things, who just have an appreciation for Anderson, right through to people who've worked on or are working on current Anderson productions.
Yeah.
So
Because, of course, Jamie,
week.
as we know, there is brand new Gerry Anderson stuff happening right now.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much, Richard, for that. Your enthusiasm is to be commended.
In the meantime, of course, you can catch up with all our other interviewees on our podcasts from number 1 to number 17. They would include people like Lee Sullivan, Wayne Forrester. They would include people like Sophia Miles.
Chris Packham.
Yeah, and there's someone that we very rarely mention, Tim Beddoes from Network Distributing as well.
Who did a fascinating chat about how they do all those amazing restorations, including Joe 90, volume 1 of which is out now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, brilliant.
Speaking of Joe 90, we had Joe 90 on the Randomizer last week. Fingers crossed for no more, because as much as, it's fun getting into Joe a bit, I just don't want,
no, we can't have
to
any
be
more,
saturated.
No, exactly. That'd be overkill, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Anyway, so look, I think Chris is off to a secret location in South America this week.
Right.
So should we go to the Randomizer?
Yeah, good luck, Chris.
In here, Marina. Oh, it's all right. They know me here. Oh, but it's been a while, though. Ah, what did I tell you, though? Sergeant Major Zero, ever alert and ready for anything.
Oh, sorry, sir. Didn't know you were here, sir.
Oh, that's all right, Zero. Don't worry about it. What sort of mood is he in?
Well,
Flaming thunderbolts.
Okay, right. Tiger, how the devil are you? Good. Say, would you like to press the big red button on the randomizer this week?
All right.
Well, you've not done much with the old place since I was here last, have you?
I only scored 87. My lowest score ever.
Right, let's see what we have to watch this week. Oh, I don't believe it.
What's happened?
It's happened again. Once was fluky enough, but we've once again landed on the next Joe 90 episode to the one we watched last week.
There's only one explanation.
Yeah, the randomizer's broken again.
We're dealing with a Time Lord.
What, you mean like the Master?
I am Lord Tempo.
Oh, him. Right, I see. Lord Tempo, is this your fault?
I apologize, and will make amends.
What, you mean take time back to let me make another selection?
Of course.
No, see, we can't do that. I have to go with whatever comes out of the machine. No exceptions. So just do me a favour and make sure this doesn't happen again in future, okay?
I will try.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, everybody, I hope you're ready for some more Joe 90. We're heading up the jungle to the fortress. Well, what a surprise. We are back with another Joe 90. And once again, somehow, we've landed on an episode that was made immediately after the episode we watched last week. Now, I swear this is not planned. In fact, I am using now a completely different random, which randomizer was it? Whichever randomizer where I visited Professor McLean's cottage, that was the point where I began using a new random selection thingy in the randomizer. So this is not the same selector that made the Try Let's See Child of the Sun God pairing back in pods 3 and 4 or 4 and 5, and yet it's happened again somehow. I am going to be refining this process as we go along. Hopefully this will not happen again, but it really shouldn't have happened this time. I don't know what's going on. Anyway, I've waffled all over this beginning of a spy making it into a shed and then being almost machine gunned by the very creepy soldier here. He was best known as Fraser in Creator 101. I do have a friend who refers to this puppet as Monkey Bastard. I may censor that, I may not. But I think it's a fairly effective name for him.
It looks like they've nabbed Roger Fleming.
Fleming? Why, he was carrying the...
I know only too well what he was carrying.
That was something I always enjoyed in this show. It's like, oh no, they've captured so-and-so. Not so-and-so. Why, he was the most important person in... Yeah, I know who he was. It's a very much a Joe 90, not just Joe 90, a Gerry Anderson trope of characters explaining to each other things that they already know. But in this show, they usually find a way to sort of work around it by like saying, you know, shut up, I know my job, I know who the person that I hire is. You don't have to tell me. Now, much like with Loch Ness Monster, I have a feeling that this episode was one of the first Joe 90 to be shown. I have a feeling it was like third or fourth, maybe. So again, maybe someone must have thought that this was a particularly impressive example of the show's strengths. I don't honestly remember too much about this one. I think because, like I say, Joe 90 just blends into one glorious piece of happiness for me. I can't really pick one episode over another unless there's something really special to redeem it, and I think this episode is just going to be more of the same, really. Which is not to say that it's bad, it's just, you know, reliable, solid stuff. And tea.
Make a good cup of coffee, Professor.
Oh, coffee, sorry. This set of the lounge in the cottage, there are some interesting little knickknacks and things all around the place. And it's just slightly oversized. There are some plates on the wall that are in no way to scale with the human puppets. There's also an odd photo of a man holding a stick. There's a big fish hanging in a glass case over the fireplace. A painting of what looks like a flamenco dancer. It looks like a really nice, you know, homey sort of lived-in cottage, like it should do. But if you look closely at some of the background details, there is one or two unusual things going on there.
Tell us where it is.
Ooh, puppets slapping other puppets. Okay, that's not something we've seen before. And in fact, the puppet that was doing the slapping has got a really nasty scar down the side of his face. This episode is probably a really good example of Joe 90 continuing the trend that was established in Captain Scarlet of a darker streak, of a more violent nature, and I think Joe 90 runs with it to occasionally some darker places than even Captain Scarlet did. So this episode is probably the strongest example of violence and darkness in this show.
Explosives, stun gun, compass, flares, transceiver.
All things you shouldn't give to a 9-year-old schoolboy.
For you at the final pickup point. Now here's your final briefing.
Yeah, do you think Joe ever... Because he's carrying all this stuff around in his school case. You see on the opening, on the closing titles, it's the same case that he takes to school with him. That means he's going into school armed? That's another disturbing thing. But do you think he's ever sort of tempted to hang on to any of this equipment? And how does he manage to not give in to the temptation to tell his school chums, you know, oh, I was out blowing up an enemy base the other day? It's another odd thing. I hope Joe has friends. I don't know how on earth they get him out of school to do like top secret missions all the time, but there we are. This is a lovely boathouse set, not least because the water in the river that's running alongside it looks so filthy. It looks like proper, you know, it looks like a real muddy old river like it should do.
Well, Joe, this is as far as we go. You'll be on your own now.
Yeah, we're not qualified or anything to come with you on your top secret raid. We're only government agents. We'll let a 9-year-old boy fight our battles for us. Now, this shot of Joe guiding the hovercraft down the river, it's a shot of the puppet in the model, the full-size model. And I don't know how this would have been achieved. Would they have been moving the set past him, like like they would do in the Rolling Roads situation of having the model perfectly still and moving the background? Because that's a lot of plants and foliage to be sort of pulling out of shot. But the camera remains level with the hovercraft. It's interesting. I wish there was more sort of behind-the-scenes footage from the making of any of these shows, but also this one. So here it is again. And there's another lovely touch. You can see the water running down the windscreen. An interesting thing here that Joe goes to sleep with his glasses on. Oh, there's a big snake coming to get him. Because does that mean he's sleeping with, dreaming someone else's dreams? You could write a whole book on the psychology, or at least the psychological impact that all of this would have had on Joe. He must have grown up so messed up. It's, you just know that as soon as he sort of outgrew the chair for the big rat, WIN would have dropped him instantly. You'd hope that they would maybe offer him a job, but somehow I get the feeling he'd be a bit gaga by the time that happened. It looks like they had a real snake on the set there as well. It didn't interact with the puppet at all. I think it would probably look massive compared to the puppet, but it definitely looks like it's on the same set as Joe's camp here. Even in the standard definition, these shots of the model hovercraft going down the river, the model of Joe at the controls looks very unconvincing. That's one part of the effects on these shows that I don't think holds up, even in SD, and especially not in HD. There's no way to disguise the fact that there's no movement in the hair and that the faces are often unfinished. But, it was 50 years ago, and nobody expected anybody to be looking at this again, ever, much less as often as we all do. I'm trying to think of any other Super Marionation episodes that deal with a theme of torture like this. I can't think of any. The closest I can come is the Inquisition, but even then it's not the sort of full-on, lights and physical abuse and mental abuse, and it's quite heavy for a kids show, which I think is probably one of the reasons why a lot of people aren't sure what to make of this show, because on the one hand you have this child protagonist, so obviously it's meant for kids, and then you get episodes like this, or scenes like the execution scene in Three's a Crowd, and it's just like, no, this doesn't belong in a kids show. Which I think is a problem that Gerry Anderson often had, of this disconnect. It looks like a kids show, but the material, the subject matter is often not. Well, Joe has now arrived at the fortress, which is quite a relief, because honestly I was starting to get a bit bored of these endless scenes of him sort of cruising up the river. But now of course he's at the fortress, I know something good is going to happen. Oh, maybe we're a few moments off that. He's got to scale the wall of the fortress first. That could take a while. Ooh. Okay, he just fired what I guess was a gas grenade into the control room where the lieutenant was sitting. He clutched his eye as he went down. Was that another facial injury this poor guy has received? He's unconscious now, so we can't ask him, but still, never mind, he's the baddie. He doesn't even have a name, so, we can only care so much about him. Oh, well, there's a shot there of the lieutenant unconscious on the desk. He's holding the back of his head, and he's got his right hand positioned under his eye. I know he's just meant to be unconscious, but that looks... That is a really badly framed shot there. He looks very much like a puppet, which was quite rare for these shows.
Try and stand up.
I don't believe you.
Now, the puppet playing Roger Fleming here is probably best known as being, was it Commodore Goddard, Major Gravener, in Captain Scarlet. And he was one of a few puppets from that show which had had the capacity to blink. I think we've discussed this before in The Launching, where the Mervyn Brand puppet was often used to play Mr. On Agents because he had that blinking mechanism. Same thing here. This puppet is being used to play Fleming because he can sit in a chair and sort of blink and look weary, unlike most of the other characters. And these two guest characters, the captain and the lieutenant, I don't know if they have names or not. They were both new puppets created for Joe 90.
I know because I am from World Intelligence.
I'll go and put a stop to this, sir.
No! Wait.
Let's see how silly it gets.
They're escaping, sir. Wait.
You'd better tell me where you've
Wait,
hidden
we
that
could
microphone,
make even bigger fools of ourselves.
in case one of us doesn't get through.
Tell you.
It's hidden down river about 8 miles past the Loreno Bridge in the old mission ruins.
At last.
Excellent. And now the race is on to find the microfilm. But of course, we're going to send in a guard to deal with the problem. And who is the guard that we are going to send in? Here he comes. It's Captain Magenta! And he's dead. That was quick.
One of them must have a gun.
That's always a very bad mistake when you have something important to do. For the love of everything, don't send Captain Magenta to do it.
You all right?
Yes, get to the hovercraft. It's in that clump of trees.
And I remember when this was shown on the BBC in 1994, they would cut a lot of the violence out of this show because it was being shown on TBBC. One of the things they cut was Joe shooting Magenta. And I'd like to assume that Joe doesn't kill anybody if he can help it, but, you know, there's always that doubt in the back of your mind. And there's Dr. Fawn as well, there's Dr. Breck as well, they're both firing away. Okay, now these shots of the river, this is much more exciting now, not least because we're actually chasing after the baddies, we're actually doing something now. But the water's got this lovely fog effect rolling over the top of it. It's very nice. This is one of my favourite pieces of incidental music as well from this show, by the way. Yeah, always like this bit. Always used in Race Against Times and countdowns and things like that. And they've now managed to overtake the bad guys.
They're gaining on us.
Do you not think you could maybe lean over and fire a few shots at them with Joe's gun, maybe? You know, just to scare them off a bit? Come to that, why aren't the baddies firing at Joe? They're like 2 feet away from him. They could easily at least try. Ooh, there's a big log blocking the river. How are we going to get past this? Whoa! Well, somehow Joe just managed to jump the hovercraft over the log. But the baddies... Oh! Yeah, they are not coming back from that. Not by them, by Joe, yeah. The baddies, unfortunately, have been blown to pieces. And you could see the little miniature figures in that boat as it blew up. They both sort of fell forward. That's rather ghoulish.
I was so full of drugs, I thought it was a young boy. He called himself Joe 90.
That's a nice ending to the story there. It doesn't involve Joe or any of the regular characters at all. It's just our 2 guest characters indirectly giving him credit for not only saving their lives, but also for breaking into and out of the fortress, which no one has ever broken out of before. We, however, have made it through the fortress, and yeah, as I said at the front, another solid episode of Joe 90. I think it is a good example of how dark this show could get. Maybe some of the scenes of Joe sort of chugging upriver in the hovercraft were a bit overlong. That part of it wasn't very engaging. I wish really there'd been more of a chase at the end down the river. Like I said, they weren't shooting at each other. You could have had like several boats coming after him, maybe even a helicopter as well. It just felt like for something so urgent, there wasn't much of a need to get there at the end. However, it's Joe 90. For me, it's always enjoyable. I don't know what the rest of you think. But with 4 episodes down out of 30, we probably won't land on any Joe 90 for a while. Or will we?
Oh. Right. Well, that was a slight disappointment, I suppose.
Do you know what? Bring back Torchy. That's all I'm going to say.
No.
That's all I can say here.
3 words I never thought I'd hear from you, Jamie.
Yeah, I mean, I'm warm to Joe a bit, but if he keeps coming back like this, it's easily for somebody to outstay their welcome, and Joe's certainly getting there. So well done, Chris, for getting through it.
I'm starting to wonder just how random is this randomizer.
Well, exactly. I mean, as Lord Tempo said up top there with Chris, he's going to try and fix it so that we don't have any more of these randomizer errors happening. But goodness me. Anyway, thank you, Chris. Fingers crossed for no Joe 90 and maybe no Torchy next week either.
Yeah, that's right.
Richard, so that is pretty much the end of the podcast. Anything else you want to contribute?
Just type one more tweet. I think this is from Jeff Owen, who said he's doing his best to catch up on the Gerry Anderson podcast. He's halfway
Try harder,
through
Jeff. Try harder.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot to get through. He's only halfway through the Wayne Forrester episode. But he says he's got the Gerry Anderson itch now, which... Yeah.
You want to get an ice cream for that?
Yeah, maybe it's the way you're sitting, Jeff. He says, are there any series on any streamlining platforms? Not streamlining, streaming platforms like Netflix or Amazon? And if not, shouldn't they be?
Yes, they are actually around various places. It changes from territory to territory. In the US, you can get most of the Anderson series on Shout Factory TV or Amazon or iTunes. New Captain Scarlet is on Amazon over here in the UK.
Yeah.
I think Terrorhawks is as well. Space Precinct is on Amazon everywhere except in the UK now.
Yes.
Ahead of the DVD release. Most of the series are on iTunes in other territories. You just have to go searching for them, and if you can't get them, then I highly recommend going to the Gerry Anderson store, shop.gerryanderson.co.uk, and picking up a hard copy, proper physical copy of one of those things. Anyway,
exactly.
I'm sure in time all the shows will appear on various streaming services, but I'm slightly disappointed that Netflix haven't taken up any Anderson stuff.
Yes, it's not odd.
They really should, get their act together, don't you?
Yeah, they really should. You're right, yeah.
Anyway, so look, if you haven't already, then now we're at the end of the podcast. You can safely go and give us a rating, write us a nice review, and do all that sort of stuff that would.
That's a bit dangerous, isn't it? Now you've heard it, give us a rating.
Well, they're probably less likely to do it if they haven't heard it first. Hope you enjoyed it. If not, I promise it'll get better, maybe.
Yes, indeed, yeah.
So that's that. Anything else, Richard, before we disappear?
It's just the usual. Get in touch, podcast at gerryanderson.co.uk. Tweet us, rate, review, subscribe. Remember, of course, to head over to those Firestorm pages for news, forthcoming Firestorm news.
Yes,
and
indeed.
We'll see you for Pod 19.
Gosh, yeah. Pod 20 is going to feel like a bit of a milestone, isn't it?
Oh, have we got to do something special?
I don't know. Should we have a 20th week anniversary?
Yes, definitely.
Episode? I don't
Let's
know
do
what we'll
that.
do.
Yeah.
Perfect.
We'll have a 1.5 hour special, perhaps.
Nobody wants that. Right, I've got to go and spruce myself up, make myself all nice.
Well, I would if I were you.
Date with that very special lady.
Yeah, do send her my best, don't you?
Oh, absolutely will. I'm sure she'll send her worst right back.
She will.
Right. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Stage 1 complete.
Let's go.
Spectrum is green.
What are you doing?
Well, I'm just because I just thought I'd do some washing up. While I'm here.
What now?
Well, while I'm in the kitchen, I thought I'd make myself useful and just do some washing up.
Fair enough.
Because some of us have got work to do. I know you're going out on a hot date, but
What's your day like?
There's stuff to be done, isn't there?
Fair enough. Right. Well, have a glamorous day in the kitchen doing the washing up.
Thanks very much. And if you want any hoovering doing or anything, do let me know, won't you?
That'd be really helpful. I'll send you a nice selfie from my date with Zelda.
I look forward to it.
All right, Dickie. Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.